All right, welcome guys to the Ventrac product reveal live on YouTube. This is the first time we've done this. We're pretty excited. So I know we've got a bunch of good guesses. I was actually watching along on the feed. Some of them are pretty hilarious, so thanks for those. If anybody guessed it, the rest of the marketing team is monitoring that chat. So we're going to get a hold of you and let you know that you're the person to guess what this attachment was. We'll get that hat shipped out to you. I'm going to move this out of the way for now. And I do want to say that during this feed, if you've got questions, we're not going to do it where I respond to the questions live because I don't have an easy ability to see them right now. But if you've got questions about the attachment when we get to that point, just drop them in the comment section. And we've got several people in the marketing department following along. They'll answer your questions, or if they can't answer them right away, they'll let me know and we'll do either a future video on it, or we'll just reach out after the fact and let you know what the answer would be to that question. So, another thing I want to say, this is the first time we've done this, obviously, so this is a little bit new to us for live videos to the public, and we want to make sure it goes okay. But the idea is this would go really well, and you guys really appreciate us doing this, and we could do this into the future too. So we've got this one. This is an interesting attachment for us, but in the future we've got even more cool stuff coming and some even bigger stuff too that we'd like to do this if this goes well. So give us your feedback. Let us know if there's any improvements you need made or suggestions for the future. We would like to continue doing this if possible. All right, I'm not going to waste any more time. We'll get right to it, rip the curtain off here, and we'll go over what the brand new attachment is. Cardboard boxes. Okay, so you can see it's a brand new power rake. This is an attachment that we at Ventrac have been asked for a very long time now by many of our users, and we're really excited about this. This is one of the better attachments in our lineup for contractors and munis and schools and all those types of customers that are using the equipment in commercial settings. The power rake does an incredible job at all kinds of different tasks, but our previous one did have a lot of requests from the users out there. Namely, the main advantage to the newest one is that you want the drum to be adjustable from the seat of the tractor, and this one is. So before, on our previous power rake, we had the crank handle that was right here in the center, and you would turn that up or down, and that would raise and lower the drum. We have since changed that, so now it's on a hydraulic cylinder. You can easily change the height or the depth of the drum from the seat of the tractor, and you can also change the angle and direction of the drum from the seat of the tractor. So previously on the other power rake, we had a lever here on the left side, and you would pull that lever forward and back, and that would change the direction of the drum. That's now also on the SDLA lever. So all of the control of the rake is on the SDLA lever from the operator's seat, and it's super easy, super efficient. Functionally, it's basically the exact same power rake. It's going to do the same job as the previous power rake. All the things you know and love about it, just improved and more efficient and easier to use. Same working width, it's 54 inches just like the previous one, but we did change a bunch of other little features, and I'm going to go through that now just one by one. So the first thing is on the drum itself. We have the same number of carbide tips, and they're basically identical in structure and type as the previous version, but they are laid out a little bit differently. The previous power rake had kind of a spiralized pattern around the drum, and if you're angled in one direction going backwards, you could see some kind of pattern results on the finish that you're working with, especially on loose gravel. And what we did was we went to a more randomized pattern on the teeth. That way the results are a little more random looking. It should improve the aesthetics if that's something that was of concern to your customers or the results that you were getting personally. So we changed that. The drive system and the hydraulic system is basically the same as before. There are a few component changes just because of supply needs and things that we want to do to optimize that system, but it's basically the same system as before. We did up the oil volume on the unit, and it's about 3 times more than before. Really, that doesn't change anything as far as how the machine operates. All it does is it keeps the oil temperature cooler for a little bit on the front end of the operation, and having more oil in there is just better for long-term durability and longevity. It helps the filtration system keep cool and clean oil cycling through, and helps component life long into the future, especially if you're running this in really abusive environments. Some other similarities that you'll see about this rake to the previous version is these side plates that move up and down. And you'll run these plates up if you're trying to level, and you'll run them down if you're trying to carry material and fill in low spots or voids. Those are basically the same as before. We've also got the rubber flap on the front of the drum, and you can adjust this by taking the bolts on the side loose and rolling that further away or closer to the drum. And what that does is that allows you to carry more material or less material and further control whether you're filling in spots or whether you're moving material off of a surface. So like if you're trying to pick rocks out of a yard install or something. What we've done with this one is we've given it more travel and more ability to control the amount of material, so you have a little bit more capability to work on the different ends of the spectrum with that regard. The rake itself angles still 18 degrees left and right, just like the previous one, but the depth control has a much broader range than before. So before we were about 3.5 inches total. Now the rotor will go 2 inches above grade and 6 inches below grade for a total of 8 inches of movement. That's pretty deep for if it's a really hard compacted surface, and probably not as deep as you want to go on most things, but that will be useful in areas where we're working on something very soft like sand or sawdust. It'll allow you to get that drum basically completely submerged into that area to sift through that material. There's also a couple new features that are completely different about how this one's laid out. First, I'll talk about the front axle here. So you can see it looks a little bit different. Everything about it, how it's on the unit, it looks almost like it's bolted on, and that's kind of because it is. It's actually pinned on. So right here in the center, there's a shaft that goes through, and that's a center axle, and it goes through the main part of the machine. And this is actually a live axle. So I'm going to start the tractor here real quick and just show you how much it moves. So just stand here and push on this, and you can see this axle moves and oscillates as you will work on the ground. I'm going to drop it down here real quick. There's a couple advantages to that. First of all, it helps level areas faster. So if you're just trying to level an area, having that oscillating front axle will speed that process up a little bit. And then the next thing that we want to talk about is removing that. So there's a pin behind here on the bottom side. You pull that pin, and you can pull this whole axle assembly off. Once you do that, the unit's obviously shorter. It's about 1 foot shorter, so it lets you get closer to buildings or fence lines, anything that might be in the way of an area you're working in. It also helps for trailer space. So if you're really trying to cram attachments and stuff onto a trailer, you can take that off and you can shove it in on the side of it, of the machine, on the side of the trailer, and save space. There's also the ability to take the bolts out of the side here that are just hanging out and pin this axle solid. So if you're working in an area where it's like a hillside transitioning to a flat and you don't want this axle moving, you can pin it solid and keep it fixed just like the previous version, and it'll react like the previous version would in the same situations. On this axle, we've also gone to flat-free front tires, front caster wheels. So that'll help in consistency. Previously with aired tires, you have to make sure they're always in the same pressures. That way you don't have any issues with the unit being off-center and not leveling properly. So these being flat-free, they'll always be consistent. They'll never have to be checked. It's just something you don't have to worry about at all. They're a little bit heavier, but it doesn't matter because the unit's not pushing the weight boundaries at all, so it's really a net positive all around for that. Back here on the back of the unit, there is a couple other things too that are unique. So you'll see some structure here that looks a little bit different, and this is all supporting structure to be able to run all of the hydraulic controls of the unit. So the layout is a little bit different. We have some different pivots and stuff to make that stuff all function, but the important stuff is right here at the top. So there's two things here to note. The first is this depth indicator. You'll see this hook that moves down to the side here and corresponds with these notches in the red side plate. These notches don't actually mean a certain inch necessarily. They're more of a reference point. So as you're operating from the seat, you can kind of see where you're at depending on where you were at before. This plus mark right here is the attachment hookup and unhook zone. So before you attach and detach the unit, you want to always make sure it's in that zone. That way the hitch arms are at the right height, and when you pull out of the tractor, that they're at the right height to get back in when you want to use the attachment later. And this plate up here is worth talking about too, because this attachment also has the ability now to angle the drum. Mark, point the camera at me so I can explain this. It's kind of hard to explain verbally. As you're working forward, you can now also angle the drum this way. So basically where it's useful is if you're working on a crown of a driveway or you're trying to install a swale or something, you now have the ability to run a drum that is offset from the rear wheels of the tractor, let's say. So the way that you would do that is you would take these bolts loose, and you would pick the attachment up, and then put a block under one side of the drum, and then put the attachment back down, and it'll force the drum essentially crooked in its housing, and then you tighten these bolts back up, and it allows you to run with the drum like this or like this, so that you can work on that swale, and you can work on an area that is crowned or has a bulb to it, so that you can work on drainage areas and things like that. Super unique feature, very useful in the right application. What it means, though, is that when you get a power rake, you do have to, there's a little bit of extra setup, depending on if your tractor's running some different configurations or something like that. Sometimes we notice a little bit of variation in tire size, certainly in tire pressure if you're not careful. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that, and there's a process in the manual for this to explain exactly how to do it, but when you get a power rake and put it on your machine, you want to make sure you set it to level first before you go out and use it. It's a pretty easy process. Essentially, just find a really level surface, flat concrete pad or something, get the attachment perfectly aligned and straight on the ground, and then break these loose and then tighten them back up, and everything will be set to normal. And then that's pretty much basically the exact same operation once you're at that point to the previous power rake. Also, what we've done on this one, a couple other minor changes. We've got new tie-down points on this. Lots of feedback on our most recent attachment and product lines. Can we have more tie-down points? We've been listening. We're working on that. We're doing it every time we go through a revision or a new product. So on the new rake, you've got a tie-down point on the right and left side here at the front, right here, and then here at the back on this gray plate that hangs underneath the machine. So we've got 4 points in total on the power rake. Here on the side, you've got a convenient spot to put your hydraulic hoses, and it is worth noting that because this attachment is controlled all at the SDLA lever, you now need the dual auxiliary hydraulics on the tractor and a front 12-volt kit to run it. So your tractor has to have those two things to run the new power rake. The 12-volt, like I said before, is used for changing the direction and the drum speed of the rotor. And I didn't touch on that. I want to say something too, I think. So we have independent control now because of that, of the speed of the rotor. We can run the tractor at full RPM, and we can dial the rotor back to maybe half a full RPM or something. And that's useful where if you're on a driveway or if you're in somewhere where you're worried about debris flowing out too far, you want to have the torque to be able to push through it, but you also don't want material going out so fast that it's uncontrollable, so you can dial that speed back, whether it's forward or reverse, and you have a little more control in that way. The actuator is also a high-speed actuator, so changing from forward to reverse, where before it was instant, now it's not instant, but it takes about a second, so it's not too bad either. Really useful and ultimately way more efficient than the previous rake in general. The structure, obviously you can see it looks a little bit different, but the footprint is basically the same. So for trailering, or if you're factoring into how much weight you can haul with your truck and trailer setup, it's basically the same as a previous power rake. Very similar in weight and dimension. Not too much to note there. And other than that, I think that's about it. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Like I said before, so we're answering questions in the comments now. Sorry, what's that? Yeah, I talked about that. As we monitor that section more, we'll try and circle back with those of you who answered questions that didn't or asked questions that didn't get answered. And we will look forward to doing this again with the next new attachment. And we'll be looking forward to all the suggestions you guys have in the comments below. We'll try and make some tweaks, make this experience even better. So thanks again for tuning into our live event, and we'll see you next time.